You ready? All right. I think we are good. I'll start on you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein, positive psychologist and also filmmaker and author, and I'm delighted to be back with you. This is the Enchanted Self show, and not only do we find out how to make ourselves more enchanting in the sense for ourselves, maybe it'll help others too, but my purpose in the way I use enchantment is that we discover how to build a sense of self that feels so good and we feel so at home in our own bodies and our spirit, and we feel like we're on the right track and we're in touch with our potential and our talents. And it's really like the greatest feeling in the world when you can be there. And we're not always there. Somebody will say something discouraging or insulting or just stupid sometimes, and boom, we fall off of our horse. But we have to get back on because we have to be the best we can be for ourselves, for our own mental health, and to help society. Really, that's the way to go. And so I'll just mention briefly that two of the main books that I like to talk about that I've written are The Truth, right here, and Secrets. And these are books for girls, tweens, and teens, and even some guys like them. They're diaries, diary format, where the girl talks about her life, all of its ups and downs and insides and outsides. And these are challenges that we've all been through. I'm sure you've had a crush. I'm sure you may have moved once in your life at least. You've had maybe disagreements with siblings or family members. Maybe you've had a friend drop you when you didn't expect it, got a bad grade when you didn't think you deserved it, felt a little sad and melancholy for no reason. All of these things are in the rush of life and the stream of life, and they're talked about by the girl in the books. The girl in the books became alive a few years ago in a different way in films. And actually, tonight, Megan Brown, who has been the girl for 3 years already, 3 full years, is with us tonight to talk about herself as the girl. And she is still playing the girl each year, 14, 15, 16, and I hope we can convince you to 17. You know, maybe it'll get old at that point. I don't know. We'll see, to see how much life stays with it. But we've made a number of films, and tonight we also have on FaceTime Rachel Gessner, who is one of the characters in the films. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
We'll be having you chat, and it's very interesting because your mom is going to talk too, and that'll be interesting because we have some important subjects tonight. And we also have with us, and I'm very excited, this is the first time I have a principal with us. We have Mr. Arthur Howard, who is principal of the Village Elementary School in Homedale.
Yes.
And he's going to join in the active discussion. And there'll be a school psychologist who a school psychologist who will join us, and we'll introduce him too. And okay, so to the purpose of these blog podcasts, getting all my technology running together. The podcasts is to be informative psychologically, educationally, have fun, but stay very much on the target of serious issues for kids, tweens, teens. And one of the most serious issues in today's world is the issue of anxiety. Of course, everyone has been everyone who has been alive has been anxious. But I think that in today's world, there are many factors that kids can't really control that increase their anxiety. And what I'd like to do tonight is talk about some of the factors and some of the natural factors that go with being alive as a coming of age teen or tween or even an older kid. And we will be talking about the concept of lockdown that's happening in schools. And I think it is a serious issue that kids have to worry when they go to school in a way that any of us over 35, maybe even 30, didn't have to. And that's relevant. It's worth talking about. So I think what I'd first like to do is ask Megan and Mr. Howard some of their thoughts just about anxiety in general, and maybe also how your school thinks about anxiety in terms of the kids, some of the maybe facilities you have and staff, how you handle anxiety. First, all right, go ahead. You look ready. I'm going to let you go first. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, in terms of anxiety, right now I'm in a pre-K through 3 building, but the majority of my experience has been in middle school, 7th and 8th grade, and anxiety pretty much comes with the middle schooler. There's lots of changes that go on in terms of their body, emotions, peer relationships, and different, I would say, from when I was in school. Today, there's also lots of pressure to achieve for lots of kids in terms of sports, and you got academics. You have 7th graders who are taking like high school classes, math and and foreign languages. So there's lots of pressure put on kids today, and along with pressure comes anxiety. And not a lot of kids know how to really process anxiety, which then turns into all the different problems. You have lots of depression, kids who come disengaged with their friends, their family. So anxiety is a real prevalent issue in schools today.
What are some of the things that happen to try to help kids with anxiety in the Homedale school system?
Well, this year in particular, we have a strong focus on social emotional learning. Our superintendent, in particular, is a big fan of mindfulness practices, ways to get kids to be in the moment and be, although their minds are full, just to be able to lay back and think and just open themselves up to the possibility of relaxation, which a lot of kids don't really know how to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
May I stop you at this point
Sure.
and come back, because that may tie into some of the things Megan's been thinking about.
Yeah, a pretty big theme in like my whole generation's thing is like the kids are kind of getting more anxious because I do think that there's that pressure to like succeed and like achieve all this stuff while you're still in high school and like after that. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that like you should be getting everything done that you need to in your life from like 18 to like your late 20s. And that's kind of a like it's a very like unhealthy burden to have put on like people my age and like a little bit older, because if you're trying to get everything that you feel like you have to do out of the way first, when the very intricate plans that people have set out for themselves don't go as they decided, that's when a lot of like those like kind of almost like self crises kind of come in, because you feel like you're not getting done what you should be, or you feel like you're not succeeding enough as fast as you should be, and like this is going to set you back like years. And I just feel like in high school, like, there's a lot of pressure to set up for college, to set up for being an adult. And while that's like a good and healthy thing to do, I just don't think that it's so good that like all your value is placed on like how well you're getting prepared for the future and stuff like that, because ultimately we are still kids and our brains are still developing. And I think that like to have all that pressure on you kind of is what causes all that anxiety that maybe you carry with you like through the rest of your life.
And how can you relax? And
Yeah.
I think you've talked about the mindfulness. Are you practicing some of it, or just thinking about it?
I mean, yeah, I try to as much as I
Yeah.
can, but it's really hard to like practice almost just like being yourself in your body in this period of time when you've got like, oh, you have to hurry up and like get to college, or you have to hurry up, and it's always just hurry up and do something in the future instead of just like relaxing and enjoying what you're doing right now.
In the present. This sounds like typical stuff going on, what you're hearing, Mr. Howard.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of pressure on high school students. Everybody wants to get into the right college. Everybody wants to be focused and on to the right career. And it's hard to live in the moment because you're always thinking 2 steps ahead of what you have to do.
You know, it reminds me, in my past, I was a very dedicated high school student. I don't think as pressured as now, but I had that feeling I had to get into a good college. And I remember once an older woman invited me over on a Sunday to make Easter eggs. And it was like, I can't believe this. I am having such fun. I'm not studying. I'm not with my girlfriends. There's no issues with, jealousy, boyfriend. Nothing. I am just swept backwards in time. And she's teaching me, and, we cooked I should probably had cooked the eggs, but we were painting them and having snacks, and she was talking about her past, and it was like totally in the moment.
Yeah.
And we all need that. Let's see what Rachel or her mom have to say, and then we're going to make sure that psychologist gets in.
You want to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a huge thing about being in high school is you experience a lot of fake friends. You experience a lot of stress, a lot more stress than you would if it was like middle school or elementary school. I think you start to worry about your future and what's going to happen, and that can be hard, especially if friends aren't there for you. And I feel like friends are super important because like you need those people to help you through those times. And I know that like you can be really, really stressed out about what college you're going to go to because you want to do well, and you feel maybe you not necessarily feeling pressure from someone, just maybe in your own head that some people are really hard on themselves, including me. I'm very hard on myself. I know that I really try my best, and when I like don't do well on a test, I get really upset with myself. And friend drama just doesn't help. It just makes it worse. But I think that the whole point of high school is you have to realize what real friends are and what fake friends are, and I think that without that experience you wouldn't know, and it's preventing yourself from getting hurt later in life.
Well, that's a very good point. And as I think back to some of the dilemmas I had in high school and some of the times I felt left out or not sure the honesty going on between myself and a friend, I realized that once I got to college and later on in life, almost never did those mistakes happen again. So I think I really did learn. I never thought about it that way. It's a good point. Does your mother want to add anything about watching the high school process?
I would say there's not only is there academic anxiety, but there's so much social anxiety with the social media. You find out about parties that you're not invited to, or you find out about there's a lot that goes on through social media that I think gives people another layer of anxiety that, I mean, I didn't have that growing up. You know, you could go home on the weekends and do whatever you want. You didn't know what
Sure.
was going on. And I think that now, every second and of every day, people are, constantly, it's a pressure to post, everything that's going on in your life. You want to show that you've got friends. You want to show where your friends are at a party. And these kids that don't get invited to these things feel left out. And that's, I think there's just a whole nother level on top of the already existing academic anxiety.
I think you're absolutely right. And that's one of the things we touched upon in the Selfie Project, which I want to give a little plug. It's getting marvelous reviews and awards on the film circuit with festivals. But still, my real purpose with the Selfie Project is to get it into schools and some sort of series where we can continuously talk to kids, experts, and talk to kids who share their anxieties and problems. So you're right. The social anxiety, we talked about it a lot in the Selfie Project in the first film.
And there's another thing too. Like I find like Julian, both my girls see this too. Like there, if you don't drink, you're not accepted. Like it's more prevalent as they're getting older. They're juniors now and seniors, and I feel like these, poor freshmen coming in feel like they have to fit in, and there's all that going on too. And it's just sad.
It is. Stay. I don't know if we'll lose you. I want to let the school psychologist talk, and
Okay.
also Mr. Howard to react to the drinking and some of those issues. Let's see if we can get Jamie on.
Okay.
Jamie?
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. Nice to meet you via technology.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm Barbara,
Pleasure to
and
meet you.
and this is Megan, who
Hello.
has starred in many of my short films and as a teenager. And this is Mr. Howard, who's principal of a school in Homedale.
Okay.
And we've been talking about anxiety with kids from pre-K to 12th grade. You can hop in anywhere.
Will do, will do.
And so, unfortunately, there was no way to have you listening, but maybe you could just jump in and give us a sense of what you see in anxiety with the kids in your district.
Definitely. So, I've had the opportunity to work from elementary, middle school, and high school over the last 4 years. So I definitely have seen anxiety in a lot of different settings and different environments. I guess the big thing in the school psychology field and in the education field, I would say, and sorry if this has already been covered, but you know, definitely it seems like there was a big wave with the ADHD diagnosis coming to schools a couple years ago, and that led to a lot of support and access for those students. And it definitely seems that the hot thing, the thing we're seeing in schools pretty frequently, is the anxiety piece. Students asking for accommodations. My role as a school psychologist in a school is primarily being a case manager for students with special education classifications.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely, I would say, a rise in students coming in with anxiety and necessitating things like a 504 plan. So a 504 plan would be like a plan that allows them a level of accommodations and support inside the schools without the special education classification. And students are able to get some of those supports, through a 504 just with a diagnosis of anxiety, depending how much it's impacting them. There's definitely a lot of students that are suffering from anxiety in different ways. And the hard part is, I definitely feel like, it's difficult for parents to truly be educated on how to support their children. It can be difficult enough for teachers and other school professionals to know how to handle and manage those students in the class, but obviously parents are the ones that they spend a lot of time with, and um, it's
Yeah.
important to educate them as well.
And I think that's such a good point that hadn't come up before, because when a parent is aware that a child isn't quite right,
Yeah.
they may get angry and frustrated because a anxious child may be sloppy in the way he keeps his room. He may space out and not get his homework done. He may, if just he complain of psychosomatic complaints. He doesn't want to go to school. He has a slight fever. Take my temperature. All sorts of things that can drive parents crazy. Let alone some depression, maybe discovering that your kid has some marks on his arm that you don't know what they're from. I mean, it's terrorizing to parents at times.
I would definitely say, yeah. It's very difficult as a parent to know what to do with those children. It's difficult for me as a professional, even being in the field, how to, effectively communicate, how to support to the staff, to some of those students. Because the thing is, a lot of students with anxiety, it seems like they have a lot of ups and downs, and it's a situation where as an adult, you don't really understand why they can't just keep themselves up. And obviously, if it were that easy, they wouldn't be suffering
Right,
from anxiety,
right.
depression,
Yes,
uh,
yes.
and like it can be very minor things that give students pretty high level of anxiety, I guess. And things you wouldn't even think about. To be to share just really briefly, I've worked with students that are on the spectrum, and they get anxious over very minor things that you wouldn't even think about. I've worked with students that are very, very capable, very on the high end of the spectrum, but even those students, they might get anxious from fire alarms or just drills and things of that
Right.
sort, and
Well,
you might, yeah,
may I jump in?
of
We're not
course,
quite at that subject yet, but we are going to talk about lockdowns. How does that group of kids handle just what you're saying, drills, lockdowns, all the things that go on in today's world to keep kids safe?
difficult.
Do some of them stay out of school even if they know there's going to be a drill? Are they? I'm
I
just.
think they get, they definitely become very afraid, and it's definitely like as a school. What I would say is that with those kids of high anxiety, we usually try to touch base at least beforehand with during a drill, or at least
Mhm.
afterwards, knowing that the student might need to kind of debrief. I think the unfortunate truth is just with students having access to technology and videos, that they're able to see that there was a lockdown drill like somewhere else in the country, that like there was an active shooter or something. I've actually had the experience where I was in a middle school where the previous year, the elementary school students that came to the middle school as sixth graders, the next year they had experienced like a quote unquote actual lockdown. There was an individual in the building that wasn't supposed to be there, but and then like so it wasn't. No one was in any intimate imminent danger. But the next year, a whole year afterwards, we did have to have like pretty much like a kind of crisis situation where after the first lockdown drill, a lot of students experienced a high level of anxiety, high level of stress that we weren't really prepared for or aware about, that we didn't plan for, I guess. And then it ended up being a situation where we had to call a couple of support staff from other buildings to come and try to help support
Mhm.
those students. And it's just kind of things like that you don't really consider, that one traumatic event might impact them greatly. And just making sure
Yeah.
that we really cover our bases and make sure we're being thoughtful of those students.
I think so often when we're trying to protect people, we make them whatever it is. Even when you get on a plane and they talk about the oxygen mask, by the time the plane is flying safely, you're a wreck, worrying how you're going to get the mask on. It's just human nature to some extent. Do you want to jump in at all around some of these things?
Well, by state law in New Jersey here, we have to perform two drills, minimum two drills a month. One is a regular fire drill, which I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar
Yes.
with, and then the other is a special type of drill. Either it's a lockdown, a secure the building, or something to that nature. The unfortunate reality of the world that we live in now, the drills, we have to do the drills. Nobody is really going to know how they're going to react to an emergency situation until they're presented with it. I mean, we can do drills every month, every year, and people will know the routine, but people are still human. If something happens, people panic, people, they get upset, they get anxious, they get scared. The hope is that they remember what we practice in the drill that kicks in, and it limits their anxiety, it limits the panic, so we can get people to move or into areas safely. It's an unfortunate reality of schools today. We see all over the news things that happen in different parts of the country in terms of violence or act of violence or intruders in schools. So the drills are actually necessary, because besides educating, which is my primary goal as a principal,
Sure.
as an instructor, it is keeping kids safe. And now that I'm with younger kids, you have to really recognize that things like drills, but it's real interesting. Younger kids, if you tell them we're having a drill, they line up, they go outside, they stand there silent, they know the routine. There's times, like the gentleman said, that there's some parents who will contact us ahead of time and say, well, my daughter or my son is a little anxious about drills and stuff. Can you give them like a heads up of when the drill is coming? And sometimes honestly I have mixed feelings about it, because the purpose of the drill is so that we can try to prep kids for emergency situations that we can't plan for. So there may be a time sometime in the future where something happens where we can't get to that kid and prep him for the drill that's coming. But a big part of it is going to them afterwards and making sure that they're okay, and how do they act in it, how do they feel about the drill, and how they act in it. So a lot of that decompression after the drill is over is what we do. Not so much beforehand, but a lot after if we feel that we need it.
Megan, do you want to jump in with anything?
Yeah, I mean, my school's drills are like pretty, I don't know, they're not all that hectic. We have a pretty small school, so it's really easy for us to like get out of the school without like any claustrophobia or anything like that happening. There was one time when we thought that like the drill was actually real and it was like a real fire drill, but it turns out someone just bumped into the fire alarm in the hallway. So that was like the closest we ever come to like it not being planned.
Yes.
So I can't really speak on a whole lot about having anxiety caused by like sudden drills, because we usually can tell when they're going to happen, because either a student will overhear like a teacher talking about it, or like they'll hear like administration, like because they all have walkie-talkies now, and like they communicate through those, and we'll hear like, oh, there's going to be a drill today or something like that. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of anxiety surrounding the drills at our school, because they are just pretty easy to like go through. So
Well, that's good. That's good. But as your mother, when she was here as a guest last time, told us, she actually had a shooter in the classroom, and that was years ago. So, and it, it's, anyway. What I'd like to do, first of all, Jamie, can you introduce yourself properly so people will know when they see this? Go ahead.
My name is Jamie Antonio Bravo. I'm a school psychologist. I've been practicing in the field for the last 4 years. I've actually been in an elementary school, middle school, and I'm currently at a high school level. And as a school psychologist, just to give a brief introduction about that, our main role is being part of the child study team, along with a social worker and learning consultant in most districts. And we are the ones that case manage the special education students. As a school psychologist, I am certified to do things like counseling, IQ testing, and I have a wide range of experiences and training as well. But
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want to play the film that I've made around the lockdown while you're still on the phone with us, so that you can see what I've tried to do is create a lockdown scene where actually there is no real hurt that happens, but three girls are pushed into a situation where their personalities are put on the spot, to say the least. And I think it's important to understand, I don't know if any of us can really understand it, but to be clear in some of the drama that the kids experience, at least to stay connected, because sometimes when we get older and we're grown-ups and everything, we're kind of distancing ourselves because we really don't want to be there again anyway, and you lose that sort of emotional connectiveness that makes you feel so that we're all one in some way. So hopefully this film creates that. Music.
So, where are you getting your hair cut and colored these days?
Salon L, downtown.
How much do they charge?
I don't know. My mom paid.
Okay, Miss Privilege. Oh, this color looks so good
How was
on
that
me.
chemistry test for you?
It was okay. Stoichiometry's still hard.
Yeah, it's the worst. Did you hear that? Was that gunshots?
I don't know.
This is Principal Howard. This is an emergency. Initiate lockdown procedures. I repeat, this is Principal Howard. This is an emergency. Initiate lockdown procedure. This is not a test.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Quiet, quiet. You have to listen.
We're gonna die. We're gonna die. No, we're gonna die.
Get in there.
Oh my god, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. Oh my god. Oh my god. How is this happening?
It'll be okay as long as we keep quiet.
No, I can't. It's okay.
Taft is all clear. I repeat, Taft is all clear. This is Secretary Higgins. Taft is all clear. I repeat, Taft is all clear.
Thank God.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
We're still alive.
Yeah. That was insane.
I hope Brian's okay. Oh my god.
Thank you.
So that's it. Any reactions from the two professionals in the field?
Well, there's always circumstances where kids who are in the hallway could possibly get caught in a bathroom or in another classroom.
Yeah.
Part of the procedure normally for a lockdown is for kids to get into whatever the closest room that's next to them is. So there's a lot of reality to that. But normally in a lockdown situation, they don't come over the loudspeaker really and say that a lockdown is done. I have to go around, or the police have to go around and open each room and make sure that each room is clear before we clear the entire building. But that's what it's like from the perspective of the kid, when they get caught.
Jamie?
Um, yeah, just kind of picking off what he's saying that yeah, like it does a good job of showing that perspective. I think I have definitely been in lockdowns where it wasn't just a drill, where it was like there's some buildings have different rules. But if there's an ambulance that has to be called for one reason, they'll be called lockdown. In the building I've been, I've had it where like parents were kind of going irate, and we needed to like have police come, and we went into a lockdown. I think the difficult part nowadays too is that with technology, with students in a lockdown for longer than 10 minutes, they started worrying and started to get anxious, and they start texting people, start texting, reaching out to parents and stuff, and like, hey, we've been in a lockdown. I've definitely been in a lockdown where, because of a student I was working with, we ended up being in a lockdown for at least like an hour, or a little bit over an hour. That wasn't unexpected. And I'm sure, afterwards we kind of had to debrief a little, touch base with some of the students that we, might feel got a little bit emotional regarding it. So it's definitely a situation where, these lockdown drills aren't just for drills. Sometimes they do happen, and it's not just active shooters. But that thought, as we're going leading back to the topic of anxiety, can be pretty anxiety inducing when students and parents are not aware of what's going on, in the schools.
Those are such good points. I find both you and Mr. Howard, you're kind of enlarging the whole picture, and it's even more layered than we might think.
Yeah, communication. I can tell you from being in lockdowns that are unplanned is really important because it's like you said. There's the cell phone and technology and the ability for kids who are locked down for more than 10 minutes to start calling their parents and reaching out, saying, oh, there's something going on in the school. And when you're operating in a vacuum without information, rumor becomes king. And
Yeah.
and as a parent myself, if my daughter called me and said that we're in a lockdown, we think there's a shooter. What's your first thing? You're going to go to the school. I got to get my kid. Which is not the safest or
No.
the smartest thing to do,
Yeah.
but it's just human nature. Is what a
Yes.
parent would do.
Human nature trumps everything.
Yeah.
We're always within it. Wondering if we could. I'm sorry we can't hold you here. If you're free to stay 10 minutes, we'll have you back right at the end. Is that okay? Jamie?
I can stay. I'm in no rush. Whatever works
Yeah,
for you.
okay, but I've got to cut you off so I can bring the other girl and her mother back. Okay?
Awesome. That works.
Okay. We'll be
All right.
back to you.
All right.
Okay. Because what I'd like to do, just to make a little clearer the differences in personalities, what I asked the three actresses that are in the lockdown to do
Yeah.
is to pretend it's now a few hours later or at most a day later, and in character to do a 90-second selfie of what's on their minds and what they're thinking about. So I'd like to play really all three of them and then discuss it. Okay? I'm not sure who. Okay.
Once we were all outside the school, we were crying and hugging each other and panicking, but we wanted to know if anybody had been killed. We needed to know if our friends were okay and if all the students were all right. My mom came and picked me up and took me home, and I felt so much safer right away. I wonder if something like this is going to change how August treats other people, especially Melissa. But I just don't understand why things like this have to keep happening. Don't grown-ups understand that we're the ones in danger? I don't understand why this has to keep happening to kids like us.
Now we're going to go on to, I'm not sure if it's Rachel next or Elena.
All right, ready?
Hi, Melissa here. So, the lockdown the other day. Whenever we have lockdown drills, it's like, we all know it's never real. Everyone's always talking or doing whatever, but this time it was real. And I didn't know what to even do at first. I was trying to think of something to do, but when you realize it's real, like, you just freeze up. You have no idea what to do. So, we went into the bathroom stall, and it was just crazy because you always hear about these things happening on the news, but then when it happens in your own school, I've never been more scared in my entire life. And then when I'll be honest, I know I don't like her very much. She's never been nice to me. She always seems to pick on me. But in a situation like that, we have to stick together, everybody, no matter how much you hate somebody. Because when you're in a situation like that, that's deadly. We could have been killed there. And so I had to comfort her. What else was I supposed to do? In a situation like that, it's different. You have to change. Because you never know, really.
Okay.
Hi everyone, so it's August. Normally I wear makeup for these types of videos, but yesterday I'm still in shock by what happened yesterday at school, and I'm not focusing on like what I look like right now. I just want to post this because I think it's really important to know. For those of you who don't know, our school, Taft, was shot up. It was the most terrifying experience I've ever had in my whole entire life. I thought I was gonna die. I didn't know. I was thinking like, oh my god, I'm never gonna see my parents again. And that feeling is you can't even describe that feeling of thinking you're never gonna be able to see your loved ones ever again. I'm really grateful though. Melissa did calm me down. I did have a panic attack. I just feel really awful because I'm so mean to Melissa because I feel the need to pick on her because of how frustrated I am with the fact that she has such a nice life. And it makes me feel better to pick on her, and I honestly feel so bad about it because she helped me, and I'm not trying to be this monster. I'm a human being, and I'm gonna react the way I'm gonna react. I mean, some people might be like, well, she's a bully, like, does she not have feelings? Like, no, like, I have feelings. I had to let out my vulnerability, and she was there. But I have never been in that experience before, and it disgusts me thinking that kids are scared to come to school. And this has been happening way too often, and I don't know what it's going to take to make people realize that it's enough and that lives are at stake here and people don't want to come to school because of this. Like, school's supposed to be a safe environment. And I never even thought, I would always say, oh, but that's not going to happen to me. Like, I would watch the news and I'd be like, that's not going to happen to me. But, like, you think it's not going to happen to you, and then it does. And it's the most terrifying thing ever. It needs to stop.
Those are the 3 in-character reactions to a lockdown. And any reactions again, Mr. Howard?
Well, like I was trying to explain before, nobody really knows what they're going to do in an emergency situation. Although you practice and you drill, it's still you want to try to make sure it's self-preservation. So you want to do whatever you do to make sure that you don't get yourself hurt. But in the example that you laid out, you can tell that the students were aware of the practices that school had. They knew to get into the stall. They knew to stay together. They knew to stay down and to stay quiet until the all clear was came about. but there's always residual effects after any kind of emergency. It's just a matter about how you go about processing it, you know.
Sure.
So there's always self-reflection, self-thought, especially if it's something that's really traumatic for kids. You know, and our topic here is like anxiety. That's anxiety to the 10th degree. If somebody's
Absolutely.
shooting up a school and you're stuck in the bathroom, you know, especially with somebody that you may not be really friendly with.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you learn how to make friends quick.
Yes.
You know, to protect yourself.
Megan, what's your reaction seeing all three?
Well, first, I want to say that I didn't see the other two till now, and I just want to say that Rachel, you did a really good job with yours, and I want
Thank
to
you.
tell Elena later that she did a really good job with hers. I thought that having each individual perspective from every character was like a really, really nice touch, especially since like everybody would process that sort of thing differently, and I think that it's a really great idea to show like all three sides of a very like dynamic like three-person experience sort of a thing.
Rachel?
Well, I know that
I'm sorry.
Your volume was turned up quite a bit. It's okay. You're good.
No.
what?
No, the volume was suddenly up and I guess I'm anxious. I'm anxious.
Oh. Well, although I can't see them, I think it's really interesting to have every point of view. As Megan said, you don't know how someone may react versus another person. Everyone has different reactions and everyone handles situations differently. I feel like some people have panic attacks, some people don't say anything, some people talk too much. It's just or like out of a, they can't stop talking out of a response of like what I don't know what to do, or a complete utter panic. Some people just shut themselves down, and I think it's really important to understand that like every person is different and they have their own reaction. And I feel like that by seeing those three clips, you can kind of get a sense of how each character is kind of a little bit of a different personality, a universal personality. Each character is kind of like their own little universal personality, and you kind of get to see all these three personalities go through the same thing, but have different reactions.
Yeah, for sure. And mother of Rachel for a minute, and then we have to go to the school psychologist.
Okay, we didn't see the other. I didn't see the other videos when you were watching them, so I don't know what the inner thought was of the other girls. But I have to say, like it's in situations like that these girls prove that any walls that they had up or any feelings that they had towards the other kind of went out the window, like in a panic situation like that. They all kind of come together and try to comfort each other.
Makes a lot of sense, and it's part of human character. That's good. That's great. Well, thank you. We're going to say goodnight to you and Rachel now, okay?
Okay, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was great. And
We'll see you soon.
Yep. And we're going to go back to invite in Jamie for the last few minutes. And maybe what we could do is kind of each of us give some advice or words of encouragement or anything, a resource. Let's see if we can help people with something positive. Hi, Jamie. I'm sorry you missed the 3 little films, and I can send them to you later. But basically, you see the different characters, how the girl that was a bully was befriended by the shy girl, and how everyone kind of worked to keep everybody alive and safe. So I was thinking as we conclude, because believe it or not, we've gone almost an hour, and I think if I want each of you to have a chance to make some comments, maybe share some advice or even a website or just some encouragement, because we can't really solve this problem, but we can be people that are the torchbearers of hope and advice and encouragement. So whoever wants to go first.
Sure. Okay. Basically, I just want to say that as someone who's experienced anxiety, I understand like how kind of crippling it can be sometimes. And I understand that there are definitely people that like don't want to leave their houses or just maybe isolate themselves because they feel like it's the best, safest option. It's really not. Everybody deserves to be surrounded by people that they love and trust, and that treat them well. And when I say everybody, I mean anybody listening and just anybody who really needs it right now, especially, that you are deserving of the love and respect that anyone else should get. So, yeah.
Yeah, well said. I guess I will just have to say that for anybody who's out there listening, experiencing anxiety, the first thing that I kind of always tell my kids about feelings, there's really not a right or a wrong to a feeling. The way you feel is the way you feel. The best thing that you can do is try to express it. Most anxiety goes along with people trying to feel embarrassed about it. They don't want to share things. They feel like they're not normal. And who really defines normal anyway? If you're feeling any kind of way that's not like great, I suggest the best thing to do is to find a resource. Lots of schools have resources as counselors. There's teachers, there's psychologists, people on your child study team. There's lots of folks out there who are in the business of trying to make people feel better. We can't suffer in silence, and a lot of people do. They suffer in silence, and it just makes matters worse. So my suggestion is for folks just to talk, to somebody. Do not sit on these things alone because you can't solve things, by yourself. It takes a village,
Yes, you're
Yeah.
and it's great you're at the Village Elementary School.
Right,
yes, yes. Well, thank you.
Kind of going along with those lines, I think he took a good portion of what I was planning to say, that it is important to make sure that we're communicating, anybody that's out there feeling anxious as a student, as a somebody that needs support, definitely continue to do that. And I guess the thing I would say too is that for any parents out there, just make sure you're communicating with your children and monitoring things in terms that obviously the hope is that your children love you the most, so chances are they trying to keep a lot of their hurt and their feelings from you in order so you don't hurt and don't feel sad for them. Where it'd be a situation that you could put a perfect face for you, and then whatever's going on behind closed doors, whatever's going on in their phone might be taking a bigger toll on it than you're aware of. So just make sure you're communicating and honestly monitoring a lot of things like technology. That can definitely be a big anxiety source and stress source for a lot of students. Unlike it was during their generation, they were growing up, where if there was a school bully, you would just see them at school, or you just wouldn't go hang out in their part of town. But nowadays, that can follow you. The second you go home, it's still on your phone. It's still there. So definitely just make sure you're communicating with your children and keeping an open dialogue as much as possible with them.
Well, these are really wonderful, wonderful statements. And I think I would just add that in terms of the concept of self that I teach, if people, particularly the parents and the educators and the teenagers too, if we can stay in touch with what is fine and generous about ourselves, we will, as a society, eventually make the right corrections. And you're right, we can't stay isolated. But each person has a different set of talents. So one teenager may be wonderful at being nice to certain other kids. And one parent may be a great person to really get on the school board, and another parent may be great to lead a Girl Scout troop, or to just have a welcoming home where people feel free to talk. including maybe neighborhood kids. So nobody has to have a pattern that's just like anybody else's. But we do have to work in a connective way, because these problems they're just not going to float away. They're going to require the dedication of us as fine human beings, and let's live up to who we really are. And thank you. Another enchanted evening together. Goodbye for now.